is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Indie Sooner YouTube channel and the JP and Trav show. Uh, as always, it's your boy JP. To my right, I have my esteemed co-host, 247 K Ref. You name it, Tulsa Downtonian, the man, the myth, the legend, Travis Davison. Trav, how you feeling, man?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. I'm glad we're not playing the Oklahoma State that I thought I saw early in the year. Um, and yeah, I'm feeling really good. I thought the defense did a lot of nice things. They just couldn't get off the field late. So I'm really looking forward to this game. My folks are coming down. JP's coming down. It's gonna be a party. Super excited, man.
And below me, we have a friend of the show who's been on before and, shares the exact same first name as me. My first name is Jalen, for those of you who don't know, and it's spelled the correct way. It's supposed to be spelled Jalen.
Yep.
No
Yep.
Y.
The
Okay,
only
no
way.
Y. Jalen Ross. Jalen, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Feeling
Good.
a whole lot better this week. Like Travis said, different Oklahoma State team. So I'm pretty confident in heading into Saturday.
Yeah.
Not cocky. Not cocky.
Yeah, just confident. Definitely not cocky.
As,
Cautious optimism.
as my other friend TJ that was with me in West Virginia, he always says cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic.
That's his
Absolutely.
word.
Yeah.
It is a working man Wednesday. Gunny, what's up?
Yep.
Yeah. So, hey, let's go ahead and get into it now. Normally we do a traveling with Trav segment because normally Travis is the one traveling, but this time I was the one traveling. So we're gonna do a little traveling. And I'm
I
gonna let
picked
you know
I
how,
picked
how
a
this
good game to not travel to.
Yeah.
Oh, you surely did. You surely did. So yeah, I Friday night, me and like I said, my boy TJ, that Trav knows decently as well. He lives in Indianapolis, not too far from me, and so we headed down to southern Pennsylvania, got a hotel, woke up Saturday morning, tailgate with some people. I saw Jackie Wins. For those of y'all who don't know, go follow her on Twitter. Great East Coast Sooner. She'll be there at Bedlam too this weekend. Um, we get in the game. It's already cold. We know it's gonna start raining. Then it starts it's like almost like a monsoon, just swirling, just we're standing there. We're obviously, you guys know how the game went, and I'll get your guys' opinions here in a second. But you guys saw what happened. Ultimately couldn't get off the field. Offense couldn't hit enough explosive plays early in the first half. Missed on too many. And then, again, defense just not being able to get off the field, not being able to match Garrett Green's intensity and want to on some of the drives that he had. And some of them were just, luck. And sometimes it doesn't go your way. So we had to walk out of Milan Puskar Stadium listening to, while in the freezing cold rain, Country Roads being screamed in our ear.
Which is actually a banger. I love that song.
I love that song, and it made me want to hate it. Because a lot of the fans in Morgantown actually, if they're not drunk, if they're sober, they're cool. If they're drunk, they can be a little crazy. But a lot of them were really kind, really nice folks. Like wanted to know, hey, how's your stay here in Morgantown? That's what they ask you. And so you could tell they wanted to be nice, yet at the same time they were just staring at you, and it just felt condescending. Like we just whooped you, we beat you for the first time since we've been a part of the Big 12.
Oh man.
Fire our coach, but we still
I'll,
came in here and give you the business. So
I'll
I'll go
tell
ahead.
you, it felt
Go ahead,
it
Jalen.
felt awful. It was Bedlam last year actually. That was the first time I'd been to a Bedlam game at all, and of course we lost that game, and so I made sure to get a ticket kind of in the OU section, so kind of like the closest to the locker room where OU was at, and of course, it's a close game the whole time, and as soon as it was over, it was like I felt like walking out of that stadium. It felt I don't know. It just felt like everybody was staring at me, and I mean, of course, I'm not the only OU fan there, but it was like it just felt kind of weird walking out after a game like that. And it was funny too because somebody actually came up to me and was like, one of my followers had recognized me, and I'm trying to be as nice as possible because I was pissed at the fact that we just lost. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, aren't you Jalen Ross?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, man." I shook his hand and then I kept on going. And yeah, it's an awful feeling walking out of the stadium after a loss.
Man,
Yeah.
I was at last year's game as well, and this was before I was quote unquote a member of the media. So I there's a local liquor store that does well. I mean, a lot of liquor stores do them. Barrel picks. Shout out Hayes Fawcett. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Um,
My
but
God.
they've got this the bottle picks, right, where the liquor store actually buys a whole barrel of bourbon and then gets it. They pick it and everything out of the rick house, and then they bottle the entire barrel. So they have all these bottles to sell that came from their specific barrel, everything. So they did this Bedlam bullet bourbon, and they get to pick the label and all this stuff, and it was a Bedlam one. Well, it had a couple cocktails, what of it. I was like, hey, I'm there with a few buddies. Let's go ahead and try bring this bottle, and then we'll drink it as we get closer to the stadium. Anyways, we go in. My buddy brought it in his jacket pocket, so he had a whole like 750 of bourbon. To where we're sharing it with people in the section and whatnot. We're not going to slam an entire bottle of bourbon, even though it was kind of cold. So the bourbon was helping. But I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm getting on that field after the game. Win or lose, I'm going down there. So I get down there, and my buddy like follows me. He's like, all right, cool. Here we're gonna go. So we roll down to the bottom right, and those walls, like, it's not like OU. Like OU, you just kind of jump over the side and like you're there. They're a lot taller on that side.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And like the cheerleaders are kind of like packing up their stuff right beneath them, all the OU ones. So I jump over and grab the ledge and then kind of like let myself down like on the wall, right? So I kind of land and I turn. My buddy just like jumps over and just wham right on his side to follow me. And I'm like, oh no. Security comes over and they're like, hey. I said, no, man, I'm helping. I grab one of the cheerleading bags up and I'm walking. I'm like, man, I'm helping, man. Let me help. He's like, whatever. So we walk back. We actually, I think we walk into Gallagher Idle by accident, but we walk around and all of a sudden I see Kale. And I'm like, Kale, he's like, hey, what's up, Travis? So I walk over there and chat with him a little bit. And then Kirk Herbstreit walks in.
Yeah.
And we had just gotten on our phones the announcement that Lincoln Riley wasn't going to go to LSU, right? Because that was in his press conference, right? So, so Kirk's walking out, and I go, "Yeah, looks like he's not going to LSU." And Kirk goes, "OU's a way better job, anyways," and then keeps walking. I was like, "Appreciate you, dog." So if only we'd known what was going on the next day, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was that was a wild evening. So, but
Yeah. And
hopefully, go ahead.
see, the crazy thing about it was like, because I remember sitting there and like I was kind of in the lower level. Well, it's all lower level, but like the super low level, closest to the field. And first, I see, Mike Boynton walked right by me, said what's up to him, and then the game is over, and I ended up going over there by the team buses, kind of in that same area of Gallagher Iba, and Kirk walked up, and I got a picture with him, and that kind of eased the pain of the loss because, of course, and it was freezing that night too, so
Yeah, it was a
that
little
whole
cold.
day was
Bourbon helps.
miserable. Yeah, yeah. Well, for you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
Don't worry about me. I'm just gonna be cracking some eggs.
Jalen, looks like we got an early request from you, from the homie Hayes.
Yeah. Hey, so this for those who don't know, it's James DeRoss guy he's talking about, super popular on TikTok. And he's the one guy you don't want to see if your team loses, is all I'll say.
What happened?
Uh-huh.
He's gonna be there.
Yeah, that's what Hayes said that, and then Joe C. Jr. told me that. So I
Hayes
think he'll
just
be on the
dropping
sideline or something like that.
all kinds of recruiting nuggets, even about TikTok stars, not even
Yeah.
about players.
Man, that's crazy. But yeah, all in all, I mean, Morgantown was a great time. Obviously, would have liked to win, but
Did you
you
try
know,
any moonshine?
I didn't. I didn't. I was too. To be honest, I probably was in the mood to try some,
I was
but
about to say that would be the exact mood that I would want to
yeah,
try some.
didn't end up doing it though. Definitely had a lot of bourbon, but
Good, good.
not any moonshine. But nevertheless, got out of Morgantown safely. Had some great barbecue. A place called Fire. It was like Fire and Hog barbecue or something like that. Man, they had these whole wings with like this Alabama white sauce or cherry pit smoke. Oh my word, just just incredible. I never thought I needed it in my life, but I did. So man, it was delicious. But let's get to the game. Let's get some football. We'll talk about food later on in the show. Football wise, give us give us your guys' viewpoints on what you felt like happened in this game. We're gonna have to spend too long on it, so we can get to Bedlam and really dive in there, and we'll get into the recruiting list and everything like that. But Jalen, let's start with you, man. What was your opinion of the game?
So much of that game was I don't know. I mean, I really had a tough time talking about it because I mean it was easily winnable. You just have to take away all the mistakes. Like I mean, goodness, you give up 14 points with a drop the ball and the penalty on the Braden Willis touchdown.
Man,
Both are avoidable. Now, for Marvin Mims, I understand. Like receivers, it sucks when it rains, and I don't think people don't really like. A lot of people don't really understand that. It's awful. So I get it, but I mean, you got to have those. And I mean, oh, goodness, excuse me. You talk about defensively. To me, I think defensively they've played a lot better than they did at the start of the season, but this past Saturday, it was like there were so many plays that could have been avoided. I mean, we were in position to make plays so many times and just didn't. And I actually wrote an article on this on our website, and it was kind of just like a little rant. It's pretty much saying like we're in position to make plays, we're just not making them. I can't really blame coaches and stuff for that. I mean, they're in the right spots. It's just a matter of how you finish. And like one of the things I said was like it's a combination of your you know how much you care. First of all, I didn't really say that, but your give a what level, and then your effort and all that stuff matters. And I mean, you talk about the play that Trey Morrison gives up. I don't know that. I think that was a third or fourth down or something like that.
yeah,
But Trey Morrison, I mean, he's sticking to the guy like glue,
you got
and the guy
Moss.
makes the catch. Yeah, you talk about the play. Woody Washington gives up a touchdown, and I hate it because Woody's my
Yeah,
guy. But I mean, he's in
that happened
position.
twice in great position
Yeah,
both times.
yeah, he's in great position to make a play. And the receiver that caught it, I mean, he's an exceptional player. Like I like the guy, but he's right there. And then
Yep.
there's another play I'm forgetting for sure. I think it might have been something Danny Stutzman did where uh I want to say he was like right up on Garrett Green and just didn't make the tackle. And Green converted. So, the whole thing to me, it really just kind of exposed to me like, I feel like the players, you would obviously assume that like they care about winning these games more than anybody viewing this. They want to win those games more than anybody. But it just seemed like there were too many times where like, dude, do they really want to be out there? Because I know the conditions were horrible. And it's like you're thinking, like, are you feeling sorry for yourself? Like it's a close game, it feels miserable. Like, what's the problem? Because I can't really point it. Because I mean, it's like I say offensively, the game Eric Gray had, he can't play a game like that and not win. I mean, the guy went out there, played the game of his career.
Same.
and they lost. Like the ground game was perfect, but the passing game, I mean, again, conditions matter, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I mean, just wasn't much offensively. I really thought heading into the game, I had a feeling that West Virginia would give them a fight, but I thought there would be a point where OU piled onto it. And I mean, you're saying at a point OU had a pretty nice lead, and then you have the penalty, the Theo Weiss penalty, and then it all falls downhill from there. And then everybody's been complaining all weekend about Brent Venable's decision to kick it on that fourth down, and I guess I somewhat agree, but at the same time, he has a good point. He's like, we haven't done too well on fourth down, so I mean, why would I go put it in the hands of an offense that struggled all game and trust them to go out here and get it? I mean, you think back to last week, there's a 4th and 1 that they very easily could have converted, and we didn't. Guy just hit the wrong gap. And so, I get it from a standpoint, but I mean, there's so much to point to. It's like there's so much, but you can't really pick one thing. I just think there was just way too many mental mistakes. I think, mentally, you've just gotta be better.
Trav?
Yeah, you bring up a lot of really good points. I think it was just the offense, like the whole season, just couldn't get out of their own way. I mean, we saw it
Yeah.
against Baylor, the Andrew Rain penalty. It seems like when OU commits penalties, they're at exactly the wrong time. Like if the other team was presented early in the game and said, okay, cool, OU is going to have 7 penalties this game. Now divvy them out where that you would like them. Like that's what it feels like, because it's like the Andrew Rain penalty last week that takes him out. You've got these offsides penalties that are just inexplicable. I mean, you've got this time it's Dylan misses the throw over the middle, and then Mims drops it right in his hands for a walk-in touchdown. Drops it. Like you said, Braden Willis takes, too steep of an angle on that, and he's supposed to keep it behind the line of scrimmage. Like, it's little stuff like that. Like, I don't think they're not coaching to drop balls. I know that much. But
Yeah.
I don't know if the coaching wasn't strong enough, drilled into Braden's head to say, hey, you cannot take this angle as steep as you would like, no matter where, you're trying to go with this thing. So that's where I really got frustrated. And for the second time this season specifically, the special teams gave up a backbreaking momentum play.
Oh, my God.
At the end of the first half, we're looking like we might go into the locker room with a first half shutout. And, you're dealing with a team that's having to play in these same terrible conditions that just fired their AD after a win. Like, AD was done anyways. Coach might be done, if not for a big buyout. Like, there's a lot of stuff if you're a West Virginia player to be like, all right, like, we just got to mail it in. Like, we're not doing anything. They're deep, like, we just got, beat the worst we did all year with Iowa State. Like, we could have ended it right there. It could have been mentally checked out for West Virginia. Instead, what do? Big return. And then they get 6 right before the half, and you're like, I mean, that alone just sees momentum for them, and they never gave it up. And the problem is we're so thin at linebacker that you can't have Danny Stutzman on the field for 90 plays.
Yeah.
Like, it's just simple as that. Like, Danny gets a lot of hate. Danny was fantastic in the first half.
Yeah. Best game of his career.
Flying around.
He was good.
I mean, it was to the point where we were like, yeah, Danny heard the noise. Like, Danny heard what y'all said. Like, and he was everywhere. He had the tackles for loss. He had the interception. I mean, he was all over the place. He was great. But that's not sustainable for 90 snaps. Like, but the problem is, and this is why I think it's so silly that people were talking about processing. They were like, oh, he's going to be processed, right? This week, off the team, him and Aguebu off the team. Okay. So our starting linebackers this week are going to be Deshaun White and Jaron Kanik, and I guess Jake McCoy is going to be their backup because Kip ain't ready yet. Kobe's not ready yet. So, like, one thing I think some of the fan base, and, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but we need to understand that the savior is not always on the bench. This comes quarterback position all the way down to the linebacking core to everywhere. We can't continue to say, "Oh man, we'll just." I'm as much as the youth movement as anybody, but we can't keep on thinking that we'll be an elite defense if we put a bunch of freshmen out there. And I get the
Yeah.
experience, like I get we need these young guys to get experience. Well, cool, get them experience one at a time with some experienced guys, so they'll be able to address who's in the wrong. Otherwise, West Virginia, it's not even a close game. Like they blow us out if we just throw 7 freshmen out there and say, "All right, learn." Like, what do you? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, I mean,
I just hear all the Danny sucks. We need to start Stutzman, and Danny needs to get processed, or he's already getting processed. Like, miss me with that stuff, man. I don't have time
Hey,
for it.
that comment from Trap House Brewman is perfect. The most liked guy in every program is the backup. Because
Amen. Right?
see, I mean, it's like all these people are saying, like the comment I dealt with the most was Dylan needs to be benched. And I'm like, do you guys remember what happened when we had this offense without him running it?
facts.
And then they're like, okay, let's just put in Evers. Well, why do you think Evers didn't play against Texas?
Good night.
I mean, there's so
Well,
many
and
other things that
also
go into it.
they say, well, surely Evers can't do any worse. Sorry, my Siri popped up. Like they're like, well, Evers can't do any worse. It's like, what? What are you talking about, man? Like, it's not like DG went 0 for 30.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy to me. And guess what? Okay, so tough conditions, 37 degrees. It's raining sideways. Hey, freshman on the road. First action.
Never
of the
played a
season.
college snap.
in,
Let him
in,
come
in
in
a
and
one
do that.
in a 1-score game. Go ahead, get after it.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Rah
And that's the
rah.
point.
Like that you're what people don't understand is you're doing a disservice to that player
Mhm.
because part of what happens is they get thrown into the fire like Justin Broyles did, and then all
Oh,
the
God.
fans hate Justin Broyles for the next 5 years for no
Yeah.
good reason whatsoever. There was a who didn't travel? Jaden Davis didn't travel this week,
Mhm.
so there was a thread on a message board that was like, "Oh man, that's a bummer. Why couldn't it have been Justin Broyles instead?" Like, oh, what? Like, get that hate out your heart. Like,
Yeah.
but that's the problem. You can get a kid in there. He can totally lose all confidence if he throws a bad pick or he just looks bad, and then you've lost him for the most part, or the whole fan base hates him for the rest of the next 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and to a lot of your guys' points, and even just again being there like in person, one of the things I think that drives me nuts is this narrative. There's a narrative out there that um, we haven't gotten any better in any facet
Mm.
since the beginning of the year. Like we look the same, and that's just not true. And Brent hit it on the press conference. There are other things that are rearing their head because you have a young, inexperienced team, but it's not that they haven't improved in certain areas. They definitely have. The defense has certainly improved. They don't look like they did against TCU. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and I get TCU has a good offense,
Offensive
but
line.
again,
Offensive line improved.
no, right. The team is improving.
Eric
Now,
Grant.
what I will say is and here's this for the undisciplined folks. Do you know that Alabama is like 117th right now in penalties? Like they are one of the most undisciplined football teams in America right now. Would you say that
Yeah.
Coach Saban don't know how to coach, and that he's not addressing things, and that discipline isn't a part of their program? Are you gonna say that?
No, JP, he's not the best ever. I could coach a bunch of 5-stars to a national title. What are you talking about? Nick
That's what I'm
Saban's
saying.
no good.
Well, I'll use middle of the pack. And now again, like Trav said, it's the timing of them, and you can call it a coincidence, whatever else. It just sucks. Like there are other teams that get penalized more, but for whatever reason this year who gets penalized, it's catastrophic. It's not like a mundane false start that happens in a random point in the second quarter. It's we're about to score, right, to go up, potentially double scores or whatever. And Braden Willis doesn't run the correct route, and Theo Weiss doesn't sell it well enough, so they have to call it right, and then we get settle for a field goal. Or you talk
Where it's
about
4th and 15, and you
fourth
jump
and
off sides for
15.
some
My
reason.
boy, my boy Grayson. I mean, that's my guy. Jumped off
Hey,
sides.
True
I mean,
freshman. You
true
got to be
freshman.
ready. True freshman. You got to be
You
ready.
talk about 4th and 1. Savion Bird, who gets lined up in the as a fullback in a jumbo package, another young guy who, hey, this is another thing. He wasn't even ready to go on the field. We were right there behind the bench. He was late getting on the field. They were screaming for him for like 20 seconds. Then he gets on the field and then he jumps. So like it's stuff like that. And again, more that is really just more, I would say, sheer bad luck than it is coaching. I'm not going to sit here and say that Brent Venables and the rest of this coaching staff, who have the track record they do not have discipline. Do not ask for that. That's why Brent is frustrated, because he's like, we've been talking about it for 11 months. I had an argument with the dude like, well, clearly it hasn't been addressed because it's still happening. And I'm like, okay, so he's just not doing anything about it, right? Just like the last guy that was here who actually wasn't doing anything about it, right?
It's like getting your head turned around as a defensive back. It's like,
thank you.
Do you not think they don't coach to get your head around?
Yeah, that's a fundamental. Because I played really, and we learned that.
But it's really hard. Like, you can tell them until you're blue in the face.
Yeah,
they got to go out there and do it. Like, do you think Valai is out there coaching these guys to not turn around, but instead put their hands on their chest? Like, come on, dude.
And I'll tell you this.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this just real quick. Like, so as a DB, yeah, it's a fundamental to get your head around when the ball's in the air, and that's why they say, like, scream, yell, run, or pass, so you know what to do. And like, even in practice for DBs, it's kind of it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a habit just to kind of keep your eyes on the guy as you're following him. Like you just, it's your nature. That's just your reaction. And like, our DB coach, like you said, you can say it until you're blue in the face. Every time we do pass scale, which is 7-on-7 for people who don't know, or we do like team and we're passing the ball, all he yells is ball, 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 letting you know the ball's in the air, get your head around. And like, people can come after Valai and Brandon Hall all they want to. I mean, that's stuff you just got to know. Like, you really shouldn't have to teach a guy to get his head around. But if you are, you better believe they are, because it's a day one fundamental.
Right. And you can get away with a lot with it. You just turn your head. You can then start your hand fight. You can do it because I'm playing the ball now, but they're so afraid of letting that receiver out of their sight, and it's like but again, it's it's blamed on coaching, and that's what annoyed me so much in the second half. These dudes are in position. They're just dog tired because the offense couldn't take advantage of their early stops.
Getting dragged.
But then it's the blueprint's out there, folks. It's very easy to beat Oklahoma. Run the ball, get in within one score late.
Oh yeah.
And they're dog tired. They won't be able to compete. I mean, they won't be able to hold up.
QB run. Yeah. And last thing I'll say on it, and then we'll move on from this. But for me, right, and my background as an athletic director, just knowing that people are out here saying stuff like that about like the coaching and whatnot, for me, just tells me that they've never coached a day in their life. Because you can, I promise you, because I've been a part of teams like this, you can coach somebody a certain way over and over and over again, and they even do it right in practice, and then they get on the floor. For me, because I coach basketball most of the time, they get on the floor and they do something completely different than what we did every single day in practice for however many hours. They get, the lights come on, whatever you want to say, right? So you standing there, I get, as a coach, you got to be held accountable. But you standing there like, are you serious right now? Like, you making me look like this? And I promise you that is what Brent Venables is doing right now. I promise you he is gritting through his teeth at these press conferences, because he, for the last 20 years, has been one of the, if not the top defensive mind in college football. And you have people out here seriously questioning whether he's coaching well or not on that
Oh
side of the
God,
ball.
that's been the main thing I'm trying to preach because, like, the main message is: do we really think that Brent Venables forgot how to coach a defense in a matter of months? Because Clemson had a pretty down year last year, but they still had a really good defense. Like, if I
They had the
remember
number two.
correctly, yeah, they had the number
Number
two
two scoring
defense.
defense in the country.
Yeah, like,
I
come on,
forgot.
you can't say that. Like, you cannot just say Brent's in over his head. He ain't this elite defensive guru and stuff. Like, guys, you don't just all that stuff doesn't just go out the window when you take a new job.
Well,
Like,
here's my issue, Jalen, is how many kids on the current roster had committable offers from Clemson, which I know all their offers are committable, but committable offers from Clemson, and that put Clemson in their finalists. Because to me, that says Brent Venables, and defensively, I'm saying, because that tells me that Brent Venables identified you as somebody that wants to do the 62-page defensive game plan. You want that work. You run toward, he talks about run towards the work, run towards the
yeah,
fire.
embrace the
Like, he's
stuff.
identified you with that. Well, and then if they had him in their finalists, those kids were okay with that, because I guarantee you during the recruiting process, he's saying, hey, this is the defense I run. This
Yeah.
is the type of work you're going to have to put in. But instead, they went to, I mean, we've got some talent on defense, no doubt, but they went to a scheme in Speed D that simplified things so they could just run around, right? I mean, you're talking like 8 to 10 page game plans, right? Like, so with that, you've got a locker room and a roster full of defenders specifically when it comes to coaching defense that aren't, they weren't who Brent Venables picked in the first place. I mean, obviously you got to get him to stay. He can't just not field a team, and you got to work with what you got. But that's what I like about moving forward with this defensive class. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that RSJ looks good out there, that R. Mason Thomas might be our best pass rusher. Like, with that, it's like the young guys are choosing to be uncomfortable. They're choosing to strain. They're doing all that when, I mean, you can't fault the older guys. They didn't sign up for that, and then they, fell in love with the University of Oklahoma and their teammates, and they didn't want to change and they wanted to play. I mean, I can't ever knock a guy for staying and playing at the University of Oklahoma, but it's easy to explain like why Brent Venables doesn't exactly have a top 10 defense right away.
Yeah.
Well, I think I want to say Kanik and Reggie Grimes are like the only two guys I can think of that had Clemson offers.
Yeah, Kanik, obviously. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
of course. But see, this is the thing about Kanik, and this is what I love. Like, and I know people are just crying and screaming for him to be thrown out there more. And I mean, the guy's still learning how to play the position. But think about that. Like, this is a guy who was committed to Clemson for the longest. Brent leaves, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to come play for Brent Venables. Like, that's a guy that you're not going to have to worry about him not watching film or not, studying that 62 game game plan sheet. Like, he's doing everything he can to come play for this guy.
Yep.
So,
Right.
and that's the reason why I'm so excited to see him. Like, once he finally breaks through that ceiling, and he had a really good quote earlier in the year. He was like, "I don't believe in ceilings. I'm gonna just go out there and do whatever I got to do." So, like, once he reaches
no ceilings.
once he reaches his full potential, it's going to be so exciting to watch.
Yeah. So, and to touch on what Trap House is saying, green scheme wasn't great, but he had a nice amount of NFL talent. Every Sunday you see Speed D guys on the field. I'm not saying that. I mean, you're seeing it work out at USC right now, but again, a lot of those USC guys didn't sign up for his scheme either. But I'm just saying it takes less work by making it more simple. And can you imagine what Perrion Winfrey would do, in this defense? You know what I mean? Like Nick Benito, and like if you had a lot of those guys were just, they're NFL talent. But I think a lot of us thought to ourselves, man, we had 5 players drafted off the defense and we still weren't one of the top defenses. Like, how does that happen? Like, so with that, it's, yes, he had a bunch of NFL talent. I completely agree with you. He put him in the league. A guy, Asamoah, up at the Vikings, obviously, there's 4 other dudes doing their thing. But the point is, I think Brent tries to get more out of hard workers and people that sign up for that hard work, knowing it's going to suck to try and learn it. Yeah. Okay. So John Russell, again, my point. Trey Brown and Trey Norwood were on some of the worst defenses that OU's had. They go to the league and they start. So how does that make any sense, right? So I think Norwood got. I don't even think. No, Parnell didn't get drafted, but they got drafted way late. But all of a sudden, they go to NFL coaching and they mold them into NFL starters. So I think if they had been playing, at that level in the speed D defense, I think we'd probably be better than some of the worst ranked defenses that OU's ever had. So that's my thing is like the talent's been there. OU's always going to have the talent.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
they had it under Stoops.
Yeah, OU's had talent since '98. So that's not going to change, right? So with that, you got talent, and some of these dudes are just going to make the NFL. And Trey Brown is a track star, absolute track star. But Trey Brown is a guy that, I mean, he went to Union. I went to Union. Like, he grew up with my little god brother, Peyton. Like, I've known Trey Brown a real long time. Trey Brown didn't even used to, show up to track meets if he didn't know a dude from Jinx was going to run and was calling him out or something like that, right? It's like he only wants the big moment, right? That's why think back to Trey Brown's best games. What were they? Always big games, right? Always Big 12 championship game.
Yep.
Always big, big moments that he was in. OU Texas, always big moments. So you take a look at a guy, and all of his big moments are with, when the competition level's at its highest, but he's not playing himself into. If you just put together a highlight tape of Trey Brown, of him running down that Baylor player, of him, doing this, that, and the other, then he would have been a high draft pick. But the problem is, they watch the rest of the film and they're like, why are you not showing up unless something big's on the line? Well, the thing is, when you go to the NFL, something big's on the line all the time. You are a paid professional, and that's a lot of money out there. So I'm not saying that OU hasn't had NFL talent on the defense. What I'm saying is they signed up for a specific scheme. Can you imagine what Kenneth Murray would be in this scheme? I mean, that kind of stuff. Kenneth Murray on this team right now would be bananas. And I know that Kenneth Murray went in the first round, but what I'm saying is there's only a certain number of guys that would fit with BV's culture and BV's defense, and they wouldn't have gotten any worse in the draft, and I bet they would have gotten higher.
Yeah, that's a fact. Hey, guys, let's go ahead and move on to this week's game of Bedlam. We know it's big time. Now, there's not really a ton at stake, in terms of, the season for either of these teams right now, but all that's on the line is just some good old fashioned pride. It's a good old fashioned, am I better than you? Straight up. Obviously we know Oklahoma has, was it 118-19 or something like that over all time. And so there's that. But, you got the SEC Big 12 banter going back and forth. It just means more whatever the Pokes want to say. It's going to be a good old fashioned Bedlam. Let's talk about some quick keys to the game. Let's get a score prediction. And then let's go ahead and talk about some of the recruiting as well on who's going to be there. Trav, we start with you, then Jalen will hit you, and then I'll finish up.
Yep.
Key to the game is time of possession for me and connecting on deep balls. So much of the offense, right, is run, and then boom, fake that handoff. All of a sudden, Marvin Mims is wide open running down the field. You have to cash in on those, or else all that work you did before has been wasted. So hitting on your big throws at a good clip, and then time of possession. The offense has to move the chains. They have to sustain drives. So you can keep that defense, which is obviously super thin at linebacker. You got to keep them a little bit fresher. I think if OSU snaps the ball 90 times, it means OU lost.
Jalen.
Yeah, so Oklahoma State has an offense that's been a little bit shaky lately, and of course, Spencer Sanders has been banged up, and I think in their last game against Iowa State, I want to say they only had a total of like 244 yards, so they didn't really do much. But as far as keys, I mean, this is a key for me every week. You got to run the ball well. Eric Gray potential to have another big game. And then what you said, connect on deep balls, opportunities to, as Jeff Levy would say, score from far. I mean, you're going to have opportunities to do so. Uh, I mean, OSU's a team that's been banged up a lot. A lot of their key guys have been out, um, and it's shown in the last couple weeks. But they're, like I said, their offense has struggled a lot recently. So defensively, you're going to have a shot to win this game. I mean, I said the same thing about the Iowa State game. Defense was going to have to win that one. They played well in that game. So it's another one this week where, I mean, you're going to have to go out and make some plays. I mean, D-line's going to have to get after Spencer Sanders because um, get him uncomfortable. I mean, because I remember like last year, I want to say he turned the ball over like 3 times. I think 2 interceptions and a fumble. So you're going to have a chance to rattle him, especially with him being banged up. I'm not saying injure him on purpose, but make him regret playing, um, to put it nicely. Um, but I think I think a lot of people kind of have this feeling that, they're kind of just dragging tail going into the game. And, of course, OU's been mediocre this year. So, they probably think it's going to be a beatdown. And I'll admit, I felt that way Sunday. But I think kind of as the days go by, I feel a little bit more confident in this team. I feel like, I mean, like you said, your pride is on the line. Bragging rights are on the line in the state. This could very well be your last Bedlam, depending on how that goes, or your last one in Norman at least.
Yeah.
So, you've got that. And then, I mean, of course, a big rivalry game, last game at home, senior night, all these things that play into it. And another thing you've got on the line is Oklahoma has the longest active streak in the nation for bowl games made. So you got that on the line too.
Yeah.
So you win that game, you got that streak, you're going to the bowl game. Now, the bowl game people may not care about, but at least you got the streak. So, I mean, there is a lot on the line this week, despite you being 5-5. You got an opportunity. You have a big opportunity to go out here and get a big win. I mean, and Oklahoma State's ranked too, so you got a chance. Beat a ranked opponent at home. Prime time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, straight up. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, man, that I don't know how if that can't motivate you, I don't know what will. Right. And so hopefully these boys get motivated and to their credit, Brent Venable said that it's not necessarily that he's felt effort hasn't been there all the time. But at the end of the day, gotta have players make plays. And so I think one of the biggest keys, and Trap House just hit it, to be honest, and it's always the key to almost every game is how you're going to play up front, right? Offensive line, defensive line. Our offensive line has been pretty solid. It's been, I think, the most consistent unit on the team the entire year. And so, just looking for good things from them. Obviously, we know Oklahoma State has a pretty good defensive line, and so they'll be challenged. Trace Ford, I think he's not hurt, right?
I don't think he's
I
playing.
don't think he's hurt. He's playing. They got, I think, Colin Oliver as well. Playing as. So they have guys on the line that are potential NFL prospects, and so offensive line has their work cut out for them. And then on defensive line, we obviously been much maligned all season. Now they got more pressure up front on this past Saturday at West Virginia than they have in a minute. I think we had 2 or 3 sacks, and so let's hope that we can. If Spencer Sanders is going to be the guy that we can, be able to contain him, keep him in the pocket, and then collapse that thing. Because obviously, the one thing we have struggled with the entire year is a running quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that was a smart move by Neil Brown to put Garrett Green in. You can say JT Daniels was struggling, but I don't think he was struggling that bad that he needed to get pulled. I really think it was a savvy move by Neil Brown, knowing that, hey, these guys have struggled with a running quarterback, and it showed. And so, I mean, Spencer Sanders is, for whatever OU fans want to say about him, I'm not saying he's my favorite guy. He's a good player. He leads the league in total offense, right? I
He's
mean,
won a lot. He's won a lot.
he has won a lot of games. He's played a lot of games in high school and college. He's seasoned, man, and he's fast. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he's at 100%, but he's fast. So we got to make sure that our alignments are set. We got to make sure that we're gap sound because if we don't, man, he can house one. So
Well, I'll tell you this, like I think back to that defensive performance in 2020 when that D line just got after him, and like Ronnie Perkins was just nasty that entire game.
yeah,
And I mean, like you said, all games are won up front, and I seriously think the key is if you just get after him, you're gonna have a shot to win. So that's the main thing to me. But I had another point, and then it went out the window.
ah,
You
I
should,
know
Oh, this
close,
is
you
what
should
that's what
close your window.
yeah. Just real quick, this was the point I came up with. We talked about it on the Barry and Max show last week when I was with them for the West Virginia preview. We talked about like if you're Neil Brown, I'm running the ball all game because this is a defense that's not very good at stopping it. So do what you got to do. And yeah, that I was going to mention that earlier too. Very smart move to put Garrett Green in there because he gave him problems last year too.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, and with that, it's Sanders is going to play. He's going to try and play. And do we have that kind of emotional dog? Like you talk about Ronnie Perkins. I mean, I felt like 50% of that game for him was just mentality, less
yep,
about any physicality. I mean,
Yeah.
you needed a guy that was going to get up in their face and talk some sense into them. And I don't know if we necessarily have those dogs on the defense right now. I'd sure like to have them soon. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think about it, it's like if we can be in position like we were against West Virginia, but just have the stay fresh, like keep it to like 60 snaps, then I think we're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, and I actually talked about that too in the article about how this defense doesn't have a true dog yet. They don't have somebody that's just going to rally the troops. And I mean, you can talk about like a guy like Kenneth Murray. Like he was somewhat that guy that would get you right, get in your face, let you know, hey, we got to take this. And like, here's what I'll say. Like I know everybody's not a big fan of Justin Broyles, but knowing JB personally, I'll tell you this: if we had 11 guys with the mentality that Justin Broyles has, this defense would be different
yep,
because he has that mentality of like he wants to plow you through a wall, and like he has that mentality every time he steps on the field that he's the underdog and like he's going to come after you. He's going to make sure you feel it. Like he has the right mindset. If we had, forget 11, if we had 22 guys with that mindset, this team would be on a different level.
Well, but here's part of the issue though. Who are your best defensive leaders over the last, I don't know, call it OU history, right? You talk about vocal leaders. You talk about guys like Roy Williams.
Yeah.
You
K9.
talk about K9. Even go back like the Boz. What do all those guys have in common? Superstars.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the issue. Like you can't lead from behind. You know what I mean? Like you have to, for the most part, like if you're going to be that dog on defense, like Ronnie talked all that shit, and then he went out and was shoving the running back in his face. Chuba Hubbard, he was smashing Spencer Sanders like whatever. Like you can't be this vocal leader, hey, follow me, and then go get trucked. Or you can't be this vocal leader, go follow me, and then give up, a couple bad run fits or give up blow coverage. Like you have to. That's part of the reason I think like Pat Fields, anybody who's ever met him, like incredible guy.
Yeah.
Incredibly smart, incredibly philanthropic, like incredibly hardworking. Like he's fantastic dude. He's one of my friends. But he wasn't quite ever just good enough, like to be the leader that he probably could have been, right? He was still a great leader, right? He was captain and he was, he played kind of the Danny role in all the snaps. They never took him off the damn field. But if Pat Fields was a first rounder, I feel like the message would have hit even a little bit stronger, right? Because you're leading by example, not only off the field, but on the field as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that is the thing too. Like your leaders have to be your best players. They have to be like even when it comes to captains. I know they're rotating through captains right now, but once they get to the point where they have like the permanent captains for the season, your captains have to be your best players because
Right.
the younger guys see that and the younger guys notice that and they're like, "Hey, I got to be like that." Like if Danny Stutzman was that guy that was like, he was the vocal guy, he was the guy that's going to rally the troops on defense, and then he's going out there and playing like he did Saturday. A guy like Jaron Cannick can see that, and then you know 2 years from now, when Cannick's starting at that spot, he's that same guy, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. Because like, and our guy Eddie Radosevich made a great point about this last week about like for somebody like a Teddy Lehman, when he was a younger guy, he sat behind a Rocky Kalmus, and Rocky's one of the best players to ever play at Oklahoma. And Teddy was, getting his teeth cut under him, and then Teddy came up and he became that guy.
Right.
So it's a whole. It's always it's all about the process.
Yep.
Right. No, and yeah, that's the thing. It's you look at like a guy like Braden Willis, I think is a vocal guy, but can actually back it up
Yep.
on the field.
Yeah.
When you start going down the roster like that, and it's like, all right, you even look to your point, best players. It's like Baker. Everybody talks about, man, he's the leader. A lot of the stuff and I don't want to go off onto this wormhole, but a lot of the stuff that's going on in Cleveland right now, I think is because they lack leadership in the locker room.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, like when times were good, Baker, yep, like he got a lot of credit. But when times were bad, he shouldered all the blame. He went up there Jarvis was the same way. Like Jarvis Landry and Baker Mayfield did wonders for that locker room, and now they simply don't have it.
Yep.
So, but to that point, like Creed Humphrey, big time leader. Like like it's amazing that all your NFL bound like first, second, third round picks are going to be the leaders on your defense or the leaders on your team. It's just how it's got to work.
Yep. Exactly. Score predictions, guys.
I'm gonna play it safe, and I'm gonna say, give me a 27-20. Close game,
Wow.
cold game. So I don't think there'll be a lot of points scored. I think it'll be a defensive showdown. I mean, Oklahoma State's defense isn't anywhere close to where they were last year, but this just feels like one of those games where like both defenses kind of come out swinging. Offenses might struggle a little bit, but I think it's a one-score game. Now, I'm not saying like it comes down to the wire, and I hope not, but I think it'll be a close one.
Let's see. I'm gonna go 30 through. I'm gonna go 35-38 OU. I know, lots of points, but I do think when you look at kind of how we've been scoring, I think with DG healthy this year, in the games that he's played the full game, we're averaging 37.75 points per game.
Yeah.
And 2 of those games came against Baylor and Iowa State. This defense is not Baylor or Iowa State. So, and one of those games was, again, in a 36-degree sideways rain monsoon, and so if you've taken those into fact, I know it's going to be cold, but Eric Gray should have a massive game. Hopefully he gets 30-plus touches, at least handoffs. He'll have a big day in the receiving game too, I think. I think they're going to hopefully – I think they're going to, in order to get in a lot of those second and shorts, third and shorts, things like that, they have to use him in the pass game and just dump stuff off to him, or just the classic, just get him over the linebacker or get him over the line and make those linebackers cover in space. But I think he has a big day, over 200 yards of all-purpose for sure. But yeah, this offense, it scores 38 points a game whenever Dylan's healthy, and there are 3 games in that sample size, that 8 game sample size, that are worse scoring conditions, whether it be the defense or the weather, than what we're going to face this week?
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'll go 34-28 OU. Um, hopefully we win by one score. Again, I'm having a hard time picking against them this year, but they've proven me wrong. So I'm just hoping to get double on there in attendance. Same thing that Eric Gray goes off. I know it's going to be cold, but hopefully we can take advantage of early success rushing. Hopefully Marvin and Dylan can connect a couple of deep shots, and then that the defense can hold Spencer Sanders in check. Um, Hopefully he can make some mistakes. Hopefully he can be a little inaccurate, but we got to keep him in the pocket. Cannot let him get free. I'm not even hopefully. I know they have a game plan for that. I'm not done. No, Brent Venables has a game plan for it. Trust me. So we'll see if it gets executed or not. Hey, I did want to, before we get to this or that, guys. I wanted to ask you guys about the uh, list that we have this weekend. I know this is a big, big, big recruiting weekend for the University of Oklahoma. Got some big names like David Hicks and Jackson Arnold will be there. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Peyton Bowen will be there. A couple of different guys. Ash Sanders will be there. Lots of guys that are going to be here this weekend. So go ahead and tell us a little bit of what you guys know about who's here this weekend and what we can expect from OU on the recruiting side of things.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the Bowen Bros will be there. Jackson Arnold will be there. David Hicks will be there. Hicks's teammate Damian Sanford will also be there. OU offer a couple weeks ago. Linebacker committed to A&M. And then they've got some 2024 guys. A lot of 2024 guys coming in. David Stone should be there. Nigel Smith, D end out of Melissa, Texas, should be in. And then the 2023 running back commit Caleb Hicks will be there. So it's a pretty big weekend. I mean, I think there's also a surprise visitor. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can really say that on here, but there is a surprise visitor somewhere that should be in attendance. And so, yeah, it's a pretty big weekend. I mean, you talk about prime time under the lights and, the new LED lights, of course, the last time you get to see those. So, I mean, it's a big one, rivalry game, all the recruits in town. Should be a good one. I mean, this is one of probably the biggest visit weekend they've had this season. You talk about a guy like David Hicks coming in, who I feel more than confident in the fact that I think he ends up signing with Oklahoma. And just all the situations that's going on with A&M right now, off the field, not even just the horrible product they've got going on the field, the off the field stuff, all the stories that are coming out and stuff like that. I really feel like this could kind of be like the finale of, and I didn't realize it was an official visit. So he's going to have a chance to spend a lot of time around Todd Bates and all those guys. And that's been like the main thing I've heard throughout Hicks's recruitment the whole time, was just that he and Todd Bates were like really tight. So you're going to have a chance to sit down with him one more time and get your final pitch in. And I think they'll get something done before the early signing period. And I also forgot about Taylor Wine, the 3, might be a 4-star now, out of Tennessee, kind of the Colton Vasek replacement, if you will. Really, really nice player. I like his tape. And then Ashton Sanders, as you mentioned, love his tape. So should be a solid weekend.
Yeah, and I believe they're doing something very creative with that official visit for Hicks. They're basically, since Hicks's family's been there a bunch, and obviously you can bring more people on your official, they're using the official for David Hicks, but making Damian Sanford part of it, so they're not having to burn 2 officials on 2 recruits. So with that, it's really about selling Damian Sanders, right? Because it's his best friend. There's a reason that all the schools that are after David Hicks just recently offered Damian Sanders. I tweeted out, if anybody remembers the stock up emoji with the quiet emoji that I tweeted after Caleb Spencer decommitted. It was because I was told we're offering Damian Sanford to take that spot, and part of it was to try and get Hicks over here. So I was very excited to see that offer go out. And you don't have to sell DJ Hicks on OU anymore. I mean, DJ Hicks was silently committed to OU for a while. I mean, and now, like, I know we've been losing, but A&M has not only had a worse product on the field, but Jalen touched on it. It's the off the field stuff. Like, it's all the drama. It's players being suspended or kicked off teams and all these transfer portal rumors and this, that, and the other. And with that, and it's really just the national embarrassment, right? So with us, we have the benefit of a first year coach has a much longer leash than Jimbo. Jimbo should, theoretically should have figured it out by now, right? So with that, Venables has the longer leash, if you will, and he loves Bates. They've always said that Bates was the best relationship that he had with any coach in the country. That hasn't changed. So I'm with Jalen on this. I think Hicks and Sanders are both, or Sanford and Sanders, but for this conversation, Hicks and Sanford are both Sooners. I think Peyton Bowen's a Sooner. I think Cecilia Khan is a Sooner. I think Sanders, Wine, they're both Sooners. Wine's going to come down to Sanders is going to come down to us and Wisconsin. He likes Wisconsin a lot, but Wine's a candidate to pop this. If you had to put your money on the table and say what commit is announcing within 2 days of this visit, I would put it on Taylor Wine. But I do think I know that Hicks and Peyton Bowen have just total presentations for them both, one kind of final pitch to them both as they're both going to be on campus for this, and I think they kind of want to do that together. But I don't think Peyton Bowen. I mean, I'm 99% sure that Peyton Bowen does not sign with Notre Dame, and with A&M, I mean, everybody's jumping ship. Anthony Hill leaving was so big for that class. Anthony Hill leaving. And then you've got Hicks. Now it doesn't look like Hicks or Sanders want anything to do with A&M. So I think OU is just going to be right place, right time. Hey, look at us. Everything just kind of fell in our lap because everybody else was screwing around. And, so I think this is going to be a great weekend. But if you guys are going to be at the game, please be participants instead of spectators. Be participants.
Yeah.
Be loud.
Yeah. And
Be
see,
loud
that's
on
the other
Thursday.
point. That's the other point I didn't make. It's the last one. Like, I don't care about records or anything. Like, go all out. It's got to be a hostile environment. It's got to be. And BV even challenged us, like, before the Baylor game. He said, I mean, these last 2 games you got at home, go all out. Harass your opponent. Do whatever you got to do. So the environment should be electric. I think it is going to be, just for it being the last game. People rallying around the team. It has to be.
Keep in mind. They're both coming from being committed to Texas A&M. Texas A&M has probably a top 3 home environment in the country.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. They're all weirdos and cultish and everything like that. But you know what? Weirdos are loud. Like, cult members are loud. Like, it is what it is. So I think it's generations on generations of success that has really let some entitlement kind of creep in. Like right now, like, our loudest cheer at the Baylor game was when they showed the OSU score that they were losing to Kansas, like, or when we threw the ball out of the stadium, like that kind of stuff. Like, come on, guys, like, we gotta, like, I think it's that. Oh, my father's father watched Bud Wilkinson win a bunch of national titles here. Oh, well, my father watched Barry Switzer, and then I watched Bob Stoops win, and all blah 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 blah. It's like, they feel that, like, I think so many of them just feel that it's almost their birthright to watch a good Sooner team. And honestly, I don't have a lot of patience for people that are like, I lived through the 90s. Bro, don't tell me you lived through the 90s, because if you lived through the 90s, odds are if you were old enough in the 90s to know what was going on, then you probably lived through the 80s, which means you saw national titles. If you lived through the 90s, you're probably alive now because we're having this conversation. So you saw the 2000 national championship. So cry me a river that you went through the 90s, but you got to witness multiple national championships in your life. Cry
Yeah.
me a river. So all this kind of I went through the 90s. You don't know what it's like. Like, dog, I wish I would trade an instant of really being, like aware of OU football in the sense that I am now, like to witness the 80s. The 80s sounds like the coolest time ever to be an OU football fan. Like, give me some
Yeah.
of those.
Oh yeah, for
Like,
sure.
so it's that's what bugs me a little bit is like I feel like there's so much entitlement and like birthright of, hey, look, we win titles here, and if you're not playing well, you better, or we're gonna fire you and find somebody
Yeah.
else that can win titles here. Like, and we're not gonna cheer until you do something we're cheering for. We've seen that with the NIL stuff. People are like, I'm not giving a dime until you show me a reason to give you a dime. I'll hold up a picture of Peyton Bowen and a picture of David Hicks. There you go. There are your reasons. Those good enough?
And
Like,
see, that's a perfect point because when I posted on my Instagram about the Crimson Cream NIL thing, the entire comment section is just, well, why would I give a dime to this program or the way that they're playing right now? Like, guys, you don't want them to play like that anymore. You want them to come out. You need a playmaker at safety. You need somebody at linebacker that's going to go out and knock the snot out of somebody. Donate.
if your toilet
This is going to help.
broken, if your toilet's broken, do you say, I'm not paying a plumber to come fix this until it starts working correctly?
Yep. Like
What?
And I do want to point out this comment too. I had to scroll up to it. It talks about the girlfriends are undefeated. In regards to Peyton Bowen, that is a fact. I mean, it's how you got Billy Bowman. So you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And she is enrolled. There's no flipping.
Yep.
She's signed, everything like that. So,
Signed.
and you talk about girlfriends undefeated, following the visits, your best friend, like all that, like just too many things lean towards that. But I just want an announcement. OU needs some good news, man. These fans, man, they need some good news. I need some good news, right? Like, it's hard to talk on radio about recruiting when you haven't had a commitment in 10 years.
Yeah, they're on the doomium heavy, so hopefully we get some good hopium this weekend.
Old Tim B.
Big dub, and what'd you say?
Tim B. I have donated to the official OU football player slush fund, and I'm proud of it. Yeah. Oh, Hayes Fawcett says the announcement soon, huh?
Yeah, well.
Did you forget the last two letters or what?
Soon.
Hayes, text me what soon means. I won't tell anybody.
Hey, he said maybe he's saying we get some good news soon. So
I will say this.
I live downtown now, so I walked by a guy with a sandwich board that said Jesus is coming soon too. So you just got to give me some context, bro.
I will say this about Hayes. Hayes is like the best when it comes to keeping stuff under wraps. Like you'll never get anything out of that guy.
Oh yeah.
Hayes and I, we talk
Locks.
about it, man.
I know. I try it, but
that's the reason he does what he does. That's the reason he does what he does.
Oh man. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get to our patented game, this or that. And then we'll get out of here. This or that is a game where we have 3 prompts. And basically, you have to choose which one you choose. If you had a gun to your head, and you have to give a reason as to why you would choose that. So we have our first prompt up, and it is in Bedlam fashion. Now, I've gotten some comments over the last couple of weeks, when I do like a Sooner game versus this Sooner game, people are like, man, could you leave the Tebow games off of there, please? We don't want to remember, those games in any good light. So I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. It's still part of Sooner football history, whether you like it or not. But I obliged this time. And so 2012 Bedlam or 2013 Bedlam. Which one would you choose?
You go first, Joe.
I think I'm gonna take 2013 because I mean, I vividly remember the 2012 game. I remember Brendan Clay's touchdown. I remember watching it, but I don't remember everything about it. But I do remember 2013. I mean, you talk about the fake field goal, the Jalen Saunders touchdown,
Hmm.
and Saunders was my favorite player on that team. And I mean, that was a cold game too. It was freezing. I wasn't there, but I remember just seeing it. Blake Bell balled out in that game. And then Eric Stryker had a pretty nasty play. No, it was either Stryker or it was Charles Tapper, one or the other. Had a pretty nasty play on that last drive from OSU. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with 2013.
Trav?
Yeah, for parity's sake, I think I'm going to go 2012. Just Landry going off, obviously.
Yeah.
Is Landry the most disrespected quarterback in OU history, or is it?
I,
It might be Dylan.
yeah, I was about to say it's probably Dylan Gabriel now, but I got into it with somebody about that yesterday. I mean, I liked Landry. He was my first favorite player when I was old enough to understand OU football. I loved him, but he probably is.
He just didn't have that
Yeah.
dog in him, but
Yeah,
he made he did a lot of good things. Though.
had the numbers. Had the numbers.
I'll tell you what, Steelers fans didn't like him because.
Oh yeah.
So I was Trey's was home of the Tulsa Steeler Fanatics for 4 or 5 years, and and like Landry's parents lived in the neighborhood like behind like our shopping center, and he played for the Steelers. So we got a jersey, a Landry Jones jersey, and hung it up like next to the home of the Tulsa Steeler Fanatics blah blah sign. They came in and they were like, "Turn that shit around." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, he ain't Ben." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." Like, he's. I know y'all worship Ben. I get it, but he still plays for your team. His parents live right back here. There's a lot of OU fans that come in here. So I was just like, "Good Lord!" But that dude set some records, man. That
He
dude,
did.
he put up a lot of yards,
He did.
including
I'm gonna go.
500 of them in that 2012 game.
I'm gonna go that game too. I was there. That was actually the first Sooner game I was actually ever able to attend.
Oh
Um,
wow!
Again, and I think I need to confirm that with my mother. She could have took me to one when I was like young, but obviously growing up in Indianapolis, even though all my family's from Oklahoma, literally from Ardmore, we Ardmore every year for Thanksgiving, Christmas. But I just had never made it to a game until we moved down to Bentonville, Arkansas, and I was like, man, I need to get over. I need to actually go to Gaylord Memorial. So finally went, and man, what a first game to go to. Double overtime, cold. Brendan Clay scored in my end zone. We was playing jump around after.
Yeah.
It was amazing, man. It was an amazing time. And I was just like, man, this is why I'm an OU football fan right here. So
Hey, real
2012
quick,
for sure, but
since you
2013
mentioned
was dope.
since you mentioned jump around, I do want to say this. So in regards to the environment on Saturday, I was told earlier before the season, like I kind of asked the question, uh, because fans were wondering, like, when are we ever going to have a moment like that again? And I have been told they are saving it for a big game, so you very well could see it this Saturday if something pops off.
So I like
Well,
to
I
hear.
mean, yeah, it's not for anything outside of the bowl game, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean. They're probably waiting for like, man, if we get like a top 10 matchup coming to town, because that's part of obviously what made it so great was
Yeah.
not only were we just stomping a mud hole in them. I mean, that was a high stakes game, and
Yep.
that was some of the most fun couple week streaks that have ever happened in Norman. That was a lot of fun. But what's funny is during that game, which we're going to tie it all together. So, you know who was on an official visit for that game?
I don't. I think I was like 3, so I couldn't even tell you.
Landry Jones.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So what's funny is, um, his brother-in-law and his sister went to Tech. So they were actually in town watching when Tech was in the Final Four.
Mhm.
So they're in Final Four. They come to Trey's and they're like, "Hey, I see you having OU jersey up, blah blah blah. I'm Landry Jones's brother-in-law," and I was like, "Oh, word." And he's with a bunch of Texas Tech friends and whatnot. So we get to talking, and he's like, "Yeah, man, like we all thought that he was going to come to Tech, and because I was on his official visit with him." And so we're like at the game, and like that's on the visit, and that whole place just came alive. And obviously the atmosphere is one of the best in OU history. And he's like, "Yep." After that, he was all OU. There was no getting him anywhere else. So that's what's
Man.
funny, that this all came back to that a Landry Jones conversation went back to OU Tech, and he was a redshirt in 2008.
I think it would have been 09, right?
I thought he
Because he
redshirted
came
in
in
09.
for Sam. He came in for Sam at one point.
He did.
Well, then that guy told me wrong.
It might.
I know
think
he
it
was. I
Yeah,
know
it
he
might
was
have
in
been
Tech.
08.
Liar. Hey guys, real quick, if you're in the chat, man, go ahead and like this video. If you've enjoyed yourself tonight, go ahead and like the video. We only got 26 likes, and we got over 80 people in here right now at this moment in time. So just go ahead and give it a quick like. Appreciate y'all for being in here. All right, next one, Aaron Colvin or Julian Fleming. Which cornerback are you taking? Both former NFL draft picks for the Sooners at the defensive back position, and high ones at that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Aaron Colvin,
I'm going Aaron
918
Colvin.
represent.
918, and he used to wear
I love
918
him.
on his eye blacks. And I remember meeting him at OU after a game one night, and I was like, "Man, appreciate you repping the 918 on the eye blacks." He's like, "Yeah, family's all still in Owasso and everything like that, so got to stick up for my 918 because sometimes y'all forget about the 918 over here." So
yeah, I'm definitely going AC. I loved his game.
Yeah, Aaron Colvin was a beast, man. And he's one of those, just like we talked about earlier. He's one of those that was a dog, right? That's one of those guys that you really do look to when the defense needed a play, especially Zach Sanchez. He on Twitter this past weekend said was one of the ones, as well as Nick Benito, that said, if you think this is on the coaches, you're fooling yourself, basically. And we still somehow have fans arguing with them, which makes no sense. But
my favorite part was like, I'm going to listen to what listen to what Zach Sanchez has to say. I said, that man is tied for fourth all time in interceptions in OU history. And we're literally talking about being a playmaker. This was a guy, sure, he gave up plays, but when that ball was in the air, I mean, obviously one of the more famous, walk-off interceptions in OU history, the famous Tennessee game, he finishes that. Like, Nick Benito makes tons of plays. The whole point of the conversation was about when you need that guy to just step up and go make a play, you need to look yourself in the mirror and go do it. Those are two guys that did it at OU, and yet you got people say, "Man, I'm not listening to anything Zach Sanchez says." Really?
They're clearly not holding them accountable. It's clearly on the coach. Don't care what you say. But anyways, I added them because another dude was having a conversation with me. I was like, man, as Zach Sanchez said this earlier today or whatever, and he was like, man, like, I'm not paying attention to these fools. He was like, but he was like, look, obviously I know what I'm talking about, but he was like, 2015 we were good, 2013 we were good. He said, but 2014 we was ass though. We were and I was just like, oh shit. Hey, but he was transparent though. All right, hey, last question. We always do a food one, Jalen, for the homie Trav, since he's a foodie.
This is the first time I've ever cooked on the show.
This is. You normally eat, but cooking, you have not done.
Well, yeah, I just got back from the gym.
Whole wings or party wings? Which one would you rather have?
Okay, so to me, I think it depends on where I'm getting them from. Because we have this spot in Oklahoma City, well, kind of in the Midwest city, and it'll be in Norman soon, called Tez Wings, and they have whole wings, and like I literally get the same thing every single time I go. It's a 12 piece. It's amazing. It's like Chicago style wings.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome. But if I'm going to, obviously if I'm going to like a sports bar, or if I'm making them, it would definitely be the party wings.
I'm specifically flats. That's just how I am.
Well, yeah,
Like
yeah,
party
for sure.
wings, but flats. Like the better meat. Like they're not harder to eat if you know what you're doing. You don't have all those ligaments and tendons and everything, all that like cartilage that you get on the end of the actual
Mm-hmm.
like drum. So and as much as I appreciate the I don't know the novelty of the whole wing, it's just more work for me.
Yeah.
Like and I'm already gonna have to do work to pull the ulna out of the flat, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can, get through some flats while they're still hot, you got the steam coming off and all that. Like I can still eat hot wings. Whereas with the full wing, I'm kind of like, okay, I gotta break it into two, and then what am I left with? Party wings. Like, so it's just I don't. It's another step in the process for me that I don't necessarily need. I don't hate on them. I think they're better looking. I think the presentation, just as a whole, and the idea of offering a whole wing is cooler. But from a practicality standpoint, I'm going party all flats.
I hear you. And I'm a flat guy. I'm a flat guy too. Um, Indiana has a lot of really good, and I don't know if it's more of a Midwest thing or not per se. Indiana has a lot of really good, or Indianapolis, not Indiana. Sorry, Indianapolis has a lot of really good spots that do whole wings, lemon pepper, mild sauce. It's the Chicago Midwest type feel. Um, if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I probably would have said party wings. I probably would say, oh, I'm going to Buffalo Wild Wings, getting some Parmesan garlic. I'm going to a place called Just Winging It down the road that has, flavor called Hot Boston. That was heat. But in the last few years, I have become more of a whole wing fan. Um, just in terms of, I don't know, presentation, the way they're fried. Like the fried whole wings, different than some of the party wings that I end up eating. But you know, end of the day, as we've said on here before, when we had our boys from Two Plain Sports on here, and Jalen, I'll ask you this
Yeah.
question real quick, and
Those
then
guys eat. Those guys eat like 4-year-olds.
we'll roll out. Hey, flats or drums, Jalen?
So I for me it just like kind of depends on how I'm feeling. Like when it comes to drums, I don't like the huge drums, like that has all the meat on it. I want them kind of not super skinny, but a little bit skinny, like easy to work with. Uh, but like if I was to have perfect wings, it would be all flats. Like if I order from Wingstop, sometimes just depends on the mood. I might either go with the mix, or sometimes I'll just go all flats.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I do like to mix it up occasionally, but again, but part of that for me is as a
Oh my word.
restaurateur, I don't want oh god with it's tough when a lot of people order like all flats, all flats, all flats, because then eventually you can't catch up, right? You have to have the equal amount of people ordering all flats and all drums in order to eventually move through a box that has the same amount of each, right? So for some reason, for me, I order all flats, whole heck of a lot less because it's in the back of my mind that I'm like screwing over the restaurateur, even though I'm really not probably. But I'm like, man, this guy's gonna be all out of flats if I eat them all. So, but that's what I often feel. And I'll tell you what though, in Omaha, I was turned on to charbuff. So what they do is they fry the wing, then they take it out of the fryer, slather it in buffalo sauce, and then throw it on a char grill. So it gets those like it gets charred, right? So all those sugars that are in the buffalo sauce and everything like that, they kind of sear to it and get that nice barbecue grilled type style. But I was I was hesitant at first because I was like, well, that's weird. You're going to have all that sauce run off, and you're just burning the sauce. They were fantastic. So I've done some at Trey's just for me in the back, but it was cool. I like when people get a little creative with stuff, and that was definitely a whole Omaha thing. Anywhere you went in Omaha, people were like, "Yeah, charbuff is like another flavor we have." So it's pretty dope.
Pretty cool. Well, guys, man, it's been a pleasure. Jalen, thank you, man, for coming on tonight. Appreciate you.
And I appreciate y'all having me. It's fun as always.
Yeah, man, always a good time.
Of course, and it sounds like Jalen may be popping by the campus corner on Saturday for KREF.
Yeah,
just to say what's up.
we're
Yeah, I
gonna
was
be at
getting
Yo
ready to
Pablo.
ask you that. Oh, okay. I
We're
thought y'all
gonna
were going to
be
be at Birds.
so we're gonna be so since it's gonna be cold out and we don't want sit out there and set up and all that kind of stuff. We're like indoor seems fine. So
Yeah.
we're gonna do Yo Pablo pregame from 3:30 to 5:30, and then we will be at O'Connell's postgame. So O'Connell's postgame. We were doing Yo Pablo postgame earlier, and it's just like it's tough because it's not really our crowd. Like it's an awesome spot, but it's like when you got a bunch of 20-year-olds walking up to you saying, "Oh, can I request a song?" I'm like, "I'm not the DJ. We're on radio. Like, what are you doing?" Like,
Yeah, I
so
requested as well.
anyways, like the O'Connells after the game, we'll do 2 hours of post game afterwards, but pregame, we will be 3:30 to 5:30 at Yo Pablo. So come through.
Yeah. Well, so Travis, what's interesting was actually, I remember when I texted you and said we were listening at the tailgate.
Yeah,
I think that was might have been the UTEP game.
yeah, that was first game.
So yeah, so we tailgate every game, and like all the cousins and all them come in town, and usually somebody has a radio, so they're usually playing the sports talk on there. And ever since I've been kind of getting connected with the ref, they've been playing it ever since. So I'm pretty sure we'll have it on there this Saturday.
Sweet, I'll shout it out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Because when you said my name, they were all caught off guard by that. So
Right,
they'll
right.
appreciate it.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you a funny story. So, and I know we don't have much time. We've been chatting, but so when I would Uber drive, so I signed up to drive Uber to basically promote Trey's back like a couple years after it opened because I knew people that would Uber in Bixby in the morning. We're usually going to the airport. So when I was in Tampa visiting a buddy, the Uber driver took me to a bar because I was just like, I just want to go to a bar and I'm waiting for my buddy to get off work. So I was like, oh man, that bar just made money off me and they never marketed to me. Like I was a zero cost customer. So I signed up to drive Uber and I would pick people up in the morning. And as we drive by Trey's, I'd go, hey, have you ever been to that Trey's place? And they're like, no, I haven't. So I'll be like, you ought to check it out. I had dinner there last night. So I would just keep doing that. Well, one of the times I was talking to a friend of mine. She was a radio host for one of the local stations. And it was like they were going like between songs, like, you know how they fade one song out and they're like, oh, we've got this story coming up next. Find out next. Stay tuned or whatever, right? And they just do like you got like 4 seconds, between songs. And I had the passenger, and they were like, Dale flying to Chicago, and so I texted her, and we were just driving in the car, and I turned it up a little bit, and she's like, Shout out to Dale. Have a safe flight to Chicago. We'll see you when you get back. And he was like, what? I was like, I don't know, man. It was great. People hearing their name on the radio freaks them out. It's funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, guys,
Hour and a half in. This is one of our longer ones.
Oh, no, it is. But hey, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it was a good
As
one.
you said, man, we had some really good conversation. Really got in depth on West Virginia and Oklahoma State, which I think was great, and hit on some recruiting. And so, guys, if you're in Oklahoma, you plan on being at the game, stop by. You'll pop up before the game. Trav will be there. I will be there, live and in person. I'm gonna stop by and say what's up. So come see us. Jalen, I'm sure we'll link up. We'll catch up, man.
Yep.
At the game, I'll try to hit you up and see if we can meet, and hopefully we'll be talking afterwards about a OU win in Bedlam, and finally getting bowl eligible and having some recruiting success. So, guys, if you don't know, we'll go ahead and let Jalen kind of plug his. I know he got a new podcast and everything like that, and I know he has the website he's working on. So, Jalen, go ahead and plug yourself, man.
Yeah, so I know some people have already tried to look it up. I don't think it's up yet because I'm not doing all like the production and all that stuff. So the new podcast will be called The Blitz Period. As some of you know, I've guest appeared on the Barry and Mac show a couple times this year, and they got me connected with some guys to get my own thing going on. And it's called The Blitz Period as a homage to Brent Venables and his aggressive style of defense. And so I was coming up. I chose between like 6 names and thought that was the best one. So it's a great way. Like for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I do the question stickers every week. I do like, I do little 10-minute post game videos, and just to kind of save the hassle of all that and creating long rants and stuff like that, just putting it all together in a show would be so much better. So I'm going to record the first episode tomorrow, and it should be out tomorrow afternoon. No telling what time yet because my schedule's always messed up, but should get it out tomorrow. And the plan is to do it every Wednesday. So it should be out on Wednesdays. It'll be available on all podcasting platforms. So Apple, Spotify, anything you can think of. Right now, I'm planning on trying to get a YouTube started sometime in the off season, getting it up and running. And then another thing with the blitz period. So since I've started so late throughout the off season, I'm going to have some guests. We've already talked about getting a couple former players on. And I also have talked to a guy named Jackson Arnold, and he will be one of our guests at some point. I think after he gets moved in and all that, we'll get that going. And Hayes Fawcett will also be on there. We're planning on getting that going on next week. So got to have a lot of recruiting talk in the next couple weeks. And then follow me on Twitter at _Jalen Ross, Instagram, Sooner Sports Daily, on Facebook for the Facebook crowd as Jalen Ross as well.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Sweet. I'm excited to see it.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks again, bro, for coming on, and we'll see you this weekend in Norman.
Yes, sir.
Guys, we'll be here next week, next Wednesday, as always. Same time, 9:30 p.m. Central Time. And again, hopefully, we're talking about a win from the Sooners and a bowl game to boot, and a great recruiting weekend to be had. So, love y'all. Appreciate the support. Trav, you got anything?
Boomer.
All right.
Sooner.